2020 was... oh, fuck. Well, it was a year that we can all agree on, and despite whatever may have been going on in the world, entertainment was still handed to us on a table, and I ate quite a handful of it. So I'm going to talk about the pieces of media that premiered in 2020 that I have consumed. I watched 76 films, 20 seasons of television, and I also played 4 video games. So I'm also going to talk about video games this year because I actually played a few. Also, unlike last year, I won't talk about every film I saw because that would just take way too long, and I may not have anything interesting or new to say about some of the films, and if I do, I've already said it in a video or on Letterboxd. But I will talk about the top 16 no matter what. Similar to last year though, I will only talk about narrative-driven content, so no documentaries, and I also will not talk about short films, and yes, I do count Host as a short film. Here's some of the stuff I haven't seen yet, whether it's because it's not available in my region yet, or I just haven't gotten around to it, but I intend on doing so. Yeah, okay, I'm going to talk about films, TV, and then games, and also this is mostly unscripted. Wow, this is not only the worst film of 2020, but maybe just one of the worst films of all time. I was so excited for it for that reason, so my expectations with this were already so low. I went into this thinking, this is going to be the worst film of all time and I'm going to love it. And I was still disappointed. Yeah, the writing is just stupid. It is not, it's dumb. It is so dumb. It is ridiculously bad. It was... it's so bad. I don't think they even tried. Yeah, no, this is supposed to be a horror film, and it's just, you know, not a moment is scary, and it's honestly kind of a marvel how just poorly they fucked up. At one point in the film, Toby Kebbell said to Vin Diesel,
"Yeah, I believe you."
And I guess that's just maybe the most unrelatable line of dialogue in a film ever, because I didn't. Vin Diesel can't fucking act. Why is he rich? Why is he famous? I don't get it. Oh dearie me, this was a massive letdown. It would be really cool if these pretentious-ass filmmakers could realise that gore and softcore porn doesn't equal art, and neon lighting doesn't automatically make your film good either. I'm fine with gore, even though in this film it is a bit excessive, at least there is a purpose to it, but the amount of sex in this film, it's just so gratuitous and it doesn't add anything to the nothing that this film is. With such a promising premise, it fails to do anything with it because you don't really know anything about these characters. You can pick up on a few things, but there isn't anything to captivate you, to intrigue you in the story. And this director, it's like he literally just looked at The Neon Demon, which I also hate because that's just a pretentious sexploitation flick, as well as his father's films, and was like, I'm gonna try and replicate that without putting any of my own unique flavor on it. Like, Jesus fucking Christ, dude, be your own person. And like, the worst part of all of this is that I couldn't see it in the cinemas because we went back into lockdown, and someone was nice enough to buy the Blu-ray for me, and now I just feel really bad because they spent that money that they didn't need to, and now I just hate it, and now I have this Blu-ray that I don't like, and the person who bought it for me definitely wouldn't like the film at all. Just a real bummer. And like, yeah, there were some pretty cool sequences, but after the halfway point, I just lost all interest and I kept dozing off. Like, I literally had to fight myself to stay awake. This film is like the embodiment of a sigh, because honestly, did they even try? It made me think I was bi. Polar, that is, because of how unhappy I was while watching that. Comedy. When I watched this, I saw 2 of this guy's other films in the same day beforehand, and like, I get his whole thing. I get what he's trying to do. He's trying to do like this sort of like slice of life thing, but I just personally don't like his films because they are quite boring, and that is the same with this film, but even worse, because all of his other films, what holds like the simple story together is like the profound element that he adds that makes it interesting, but this film doesn't have that. The dialogue isn't interesting, and that's all the film has. And it's got his signature cinematography as well, but that just makes it even more boring because of how static it is. And it really does make me wonder if his intention was to make something so boring, because I swear to God, this wasn't even color graded. It's just dull characters talking for 70 minutes, you know? It's barely even feature length. That video was kind of just me, kind of BSing a bit because I couldn't accept the fact that it was just so bad. Because this was, yeah, no, fuck this film. This is honestly like a self-parody of all of Nolan's films. The more and more I think about this film, the more I just hate it. I think Nolan's ego is just way too big now, and he's just losing his way. This film is just complex for the sake of being complex, because the story is so simple, you know, and generic, and like the characters are just, there are no characters. Fucking your typical, oh, he puts in a female character and like her only trait is that she's a caring mother, and you throw in an abusive relationship, oh, manipulate the audience into caring about something. No, fuck off. You can't write characters. Films should show human emotion. That's the whole point of films, right? But there is no human emotion in this. You know, I need something to sink my teeth into. I think deep down he's aware that this film is shit, and so he overcomplicates it because then people will give it a high review, because if they don't, people will think they're dumb. When no, you're not. This film is just the same as all of his other films, but just even worse. Oh, just Nolan, get your head out of your ass. And like the people who like this film, I don't want to shit on you, because I have a bunch of friends who really like this film, but I'm willing to bet that if this film wasn't directed by Nolan, and by that I mean it's the exact same final product, but his name is just nowhere to be seen, I'm willing to bet you wouldn't like this film. Oh, and also, how can I forget, the audio mixing is atrocious. You can't hear a single fucking line of dialogue, and even if you could, it's all expository anyway, so you know, who cares? It just really couldn't get into it past the opening sequence, because the opening sequence was pretty cool. I liked this far more than I was anticipating. I was anticipating, like, you know, one of the worst films ever made, and it was fine. There were some pretty good gags. You know, like, everyone making the film clearly was just having a fun time. Steve Buscemi was clearly just there for the paycheck, so, you know, good on him. But yeah, no, it's not a good film in the slightest, but it's fine. It was bearable. It did kind of feel like a sitcom special episode dragged out to be feature length. I don't know why it didn't click with me sooner that this would be bad, because any film that references social media in its title is obviously not gonna be good, and yeah, this is no exception to that rule. This was honestly just quite boring, given how there is no development to the characters whatsoever. I tend to like slow-paced films, but this is really slow-paced to the point that the structure, like the first portion of the film is like, I think half of its runtime, and it just doesn't need to be that long. And then it just also felt like it wanted so hard to be a Coen Brothers film. I just think this film really, it shoots and it does not hit the bullseye. Yeah, I just found this boring, and I didn't really care, and like there's some fucked up stuff in this film, and it just feels like it's in there because it's fucked up. Pretty much all of the characters are quite unlikable, and the chemistry between Dacre Montgomery and Geraldine, I can't remember her last name, just wasn't there. And also I just hate it because it's like, can we just stop with these generic rom-coms? It just promotes this idea that men and women can't be friends. Also like really poorly paced, and there were some things in there that made me chuckle, but also there's an abusive relationship in this film, and it's used as a laughing stock. The first like 30 minutes of this are like a pretty nice sort of like cutesy like rom-com thing, but then it divulges into this just weird thing, and it's not even like good weird, and I didn't like it, and it was just kind of boring once that started to happen. This is another shitty Blumhouse film that I intend on making a full-on video about, but pretty much this was woohoo. When I watched this in the cinema, I honestly I struggled to hold in laughter. There's like no conflict. It's like, it's only till like the last like 30 minutes where we're like, oh fuck, there's nothing holding this film together. There's only one credited writer. I don't believe that, because one person isn't able to fuck it up this much. From the synopsis, I was like, this will be pretty fun. It wasn't. I was actually really irritated throughout most of its runtime. And don't get me wrong, there was some really just cute as shit heartwarming stuff in here, especially with Amber's character towards like the end of the film. But yeah, no, I just didn't like this. It really, like, the writing is just like so confused. First of all, it feels like a sort of like 8-episode limited series condensed into 90 minutes, which alone is a bad thing, but then tonally and structurally just quite messy, and I thought she was performed really well, and like her character arc was good, but the second main character, Eddie, he was a fucking dickhead. I hate him so much, and you're not supposed to hate him, I don't think. And like his character growth is all done right at the end, as if he just suddenly ate a mushroom like fucking Mario and went, wow, it's me, I am Eddie, I'm now not a prick. Yeah, so it wasn't good. I was quite eager to watch this because I loved this director's last film, and her direction is definitely the strongest part of this film. She just has a very distinctive conceptual style that I really like. Like, the cinematography and the editing just goes hand in hand with one another, and it's just so good. And the sound design I thought was also quite good in this as well. And I also liked the cast, but I guess plot-wise, I just couldn't vibe with it. Like, I was never bored, but I was never captivated either, which is a shame. But yeah, it's not a bad film by any means. Purely only talking about this so I could make that joke with the title card because I have a Letterboxd review on this. If I could sum it up, despite the writers being gay, it feels like a straight person wrote this. Like, I like how it comments on heteronormativity and how bad it is, but they just mention it and then they never do anything with it. Also, the direction isn't great because the performances aren't all too believable, and Mackenzie Davis's character is really unlikable that you want the story to go in another direction, but it sadly doesn't, and I also feel that it underutilizes two of its best characters. I'm really shocked at how well received this film is, honestly. And once again, this is a gay film where the conflict is, oh no, I'm gay and my family don't know. They're gonna find out by the end most probably. And that's the whole film. And yeah, it does do it a lot better than most other films, but it just really isn't interesting because I've seen it a million times before. And like, everyone's raving about Paul Bettany's performance. It's fine. The other guy, the boyfriend of Paul Bettany, he was fun. He was charming. I liked him. Maybe this would be higher up if I didn't just absolutely love his first feature, Thunder Road, because this was really disappointing to me. I could never really get into it because I thought, for the most part, the dialogue was bad, the character writing felt cheap, and also like the main character is essentially just the main character from Thunder Road, but less fleshed out. Just overall, the whole thing didn't feel meaty, and it didn't feel like he was tapping into his true potential. And also, I guess this is kind of a spoiler, but 20 minutes in, they show the wolf, and I think that's a pretty massive mistake. But I really did like the editing. I thought it was great. Over time, it really just has decreased in quality because I really can't remember much about it, and it just feels very, I guess, overdone. Delroy Lindo was fucking amazing, and so was Jonathan Majors. I really liked him, and there was one scene with him in that was really good and like really tense. This is massively overrated because it follows the same manipulative Pixar formula that all of their other films have, and also it lacks the emotional punch that it thinks it has because it never fully explores the nihilistic themes or the concept itself. And also, the protagonist is an arsehole. I already don't connect to him because I can't relate to what he's feeling, but then also he's just selfish and rude. And also, the soul world doesn't really make much sense. If you stop to think about it for a second, you would have thought about it more than the writers, because they clearly don't care about how coherent it is because they know that dumb kids will watch it and they won't think any further than, oh my god, there's a cute cat, that is so funny. I can't remember exactly what it was because this is the type of film you forget within 2 weeks, but I swear they contradict something that they tried to establish. But yeah, I have a way too long Letterboxd review on this, so you can read that if you want. This sounded like it would be pretty good, and it was. But I feel like maybe it would have been more suited to being a stage play, and I'm not just saying that because of the almost impeccably acted and well-captured 30-minute long take that it opens with, but it is just quite melodramatic, and it feels kind of like a theatre production in that sense. And also, I feel like they could have maybe gotten a bit more creative in terms of the presentation. Kristen Stewart has a really cool slide at the beginning of the film, so I'd say 10 out of 10. I'm not too sure why Netflix chose just not to promote this, because this was quite good. I liked the way it was shot, and it captures like the feeling of solitude really well, and from what I remember, the lead performance was pretty good as well. Like, it was very reserved. Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, at parts it did drag and feel stagnant, but that is the point. I'm very mixed on this because there isn't really much of an interesting conflict until like halfway through the film, and it just suddenly changes tone in the final act, and I just didn't really like the final act that much because there's a lot of like character stuff that happens that just doesn't make any sense. And really all throughout the film, character stuff that doesn't make any sense because this girl has a crush on a boy and the film thinks it's cute when actually it's just really creepy. And also the size of the cat was inconsistent. That shouldn't bug me, but it just does. But yeah, I had fun with it, which is why it's this high up on the list, obviously, but it was fairly average. I paid £2 to rent this, and yeah, it was worth it, you know, like it was fun, but it is also pretty dumb, and not the fun dumb, just in the way that it's just very lacking in the core areas, you know, like the characters I don't care about, story's predictable, and the message is just like, are you kidding me? But yeah, it's a pretty fun film. I think Charlie Plummer just straight up sucked. I think he was really bad. He was not believable for a second for me. I liked the score. The score was honestly really cool. I remember there being some cool shots, and there was some editing that I quite liked as well. It feels like it's trying to replicate Euphoria in a way, I guess, as well as like a Zombieland, I guess. Yeah, and then also the world building I thought was pretty bad as well. The first half of this isn't really that good, but I did like the second half, and also something I didn't touch upon in my Letterboxd review, this is a pretty good period piece, and there's one scene where, like, because it's set in World War II, they're hiding out from an air raid, and I just thought that was executed really well, and I feel like that should deserve more credit. But yeah, story isn't the most engaging at first, but Gemma Arterton just gives a fantastic performance all throughout. Yeah, the story isn't all too engaging, and although the music I did like, I thought it was a bit too present, but the direction is great. Like, literally all of these performances are just flawless. Where this falls flat is the writing. If she were to team up with, like, another writer, I think she could make something truly beautiful. I'm very mixed on this because I did like it, but it's not very good. It's a good thriller, but it's not a good film. You know, like, it has a lot of writing where they overlook a few things and just don't really touch on that. I guess in that sense it really is just a dumb fun thriller to turn your brain off, because this film kind of deals with time travel, and that's basically just asking you to give up on any logic. I didn't think much of the cinematography. I thought most music choices were quite out of place, but despite some poor writing, it is an engaging concept with some really cool sequences held together by two great lead performances. But yeah, although it is a captivating thriller, which I liked, it's not good due to the lack of subtlety and fleshing out of the script, which is weird because I feel they could have shaved about 30 minutes off of the runtime and had a more effective ending, especially compared to the one I got that I, and seemingly like the majority of people, just hated. Also, I don't know what this was about. Message-wise, I don't think there was one. I don't think it was trying to say anything. I absolutely love the art direction. The meshing of the several different art styles works so well to create a wonderfully distinctive design, and it really just puts Pixar to shame with the artistic integrity they imbue into the art style, as it really pushes its format to the fullest. However, it does have fairly typical characters. You know, it's got an outcast kid with dead parent, and the pacing isn't the best due to these typical characters. It feels like it dragged a bit, but it also felt like it should have been about 15 minutes longer. But yeah, this is really good, and I really liked the subtext it was written with, as I interpreted it 3 different ways, and this is a film that just anyone can enjoy, and I certainly did. I'd say this is my favourite Sofia Coppola film I've seen so far. She's always been a very competent director, but I feel like she's quite lacking in the script department. But this one, she definitely steps it up a notch. And I thought the script was good at expressing like the ideas and the beliefs and getting them across very well. And I thought the dialogue was very believable as well, and so were the performances. And I also liked the music. I just really like these sort of mumblecore New York films. There's just something about them that feels so comfortable. This honestly took me a bit by surprise. I still don't consider it great, as everything is kind of just serviceable and there's no like standout thing to make it, you know, special. But I felt like the over 2-hour runtime was going to be unjustified, but no. First of all, the pacing of the film is great. I was just really into the whole thing, and it just felt so much shorter than 2 hours. But that is my main problem. It does kind of feel like a mini-series condensed into a film. Lots of side characters are underdeveloped, and I like Pete Davidson's delivery to some lines of dialogue because they kind of elevate the material and make it much funnier. But yeah, this was a lot better than I was expecting, and it was a lot of fun. I was originally going to rewatch this because everyone says you have to, but I just haven't had the time, and also I feel like I don't need to. I'm in the minority where I think this is actually quite accessible, and it isn't as deep and crazy as everyone's saying it is. Like, I feel like I got everything it was doing and was saying, and I feel like I won't really benefit from a second viewing. But who knows, I might catch something that I missed first time around, because Charlie Kaufman he's an intelligent writer. Nevertheless, this is an exceptional film. I quite liked the overall look, and I thought the performances were definitely one of the highlights, especially from Jessie Buckley and Toni Collette. Toni Collette's like physicality was really good, and the pacing is really good. Like, this is the same length as The Devil All the Time, yet it felt so short. I already got a review about this on my channel, but yeah, most of like the criticism in that video still stands, you know, like very generic, but I like the whole like brother dynamic stuff. But you know, since then I rewatched all of the Pixar films for the first time since in like 7 years or something like that, and I realized how they are all the same manipulative, just plain shit. So chances are if I were to watch this now, I would most probably just hate it. But yeah, I remember liking it. Is it pretty forgettable? Yeah, but it's pretty fun. I do like the whole point of it, but also the world building is stupid. And like, yeah, I get the message, but how did these magical elves end up in the exact same society as humans? Like, why are there these like pixies that have motorbikes that are human size? You would think that in this world there would be motorbikes especially made for pixies. So in that aspect, the world building is fucking stupid, and I hate it because Pixar are so uncreative. I definitely had a lot more fun with this one because I think the humor just lands so much stronger for me. Yeah, I just really found it funny, and I liked Maria Bakalova, was that her name? She was like really cool as like Borat's daughter, and it just added like a lot of heart to the film and just made it so much more interesting. And like, yeah, the social commentary isn't as good as the first film because in like 20 years time, is this film still gonna be like fucking hilarious? I don't think so. I think this is a very timely film. Obviously some jokes are still a bit like, it's not my thing, but yeah, I was laughing out loud a lot during this, and just Sacha Baron Cohen's just a really good character actor. Yeah, I was like highly anticipating it because it looked like a film that I would really like, and yes, it has a lot of my pet peeves when it comes to filmmaking, in terms of, you know, like it's not exactly very subtle, and it's not, you know, there's some choices that are made where I'm just like, I feel like there's a cooler way you could have done that, but okay. But yeah, I like Jessie Buckley. Keira Knightley was also good as well, and I just really like the message of the film and like how it deals with like its political commentary. I really liked, and you know, because I hate men. I don't care what you say, I love this film. And look, maybe it was the theatre dynamic, because when I watched this opening night, it was like a packed theatre. I was like one of the youngest people there, and like everyone else was just like mid-20s, 30s, you know, and it was just great. Everyone was there to just have a fun time, and like the experience was definitely elevated from that. Because when I rewatched it about 2 weeks later, by the way, I'm so proud I get to say I've seen Sonic twice in the cinema. It wasn't as good, and it's definitely not a coincidence that the theatre was less packed that day, but also I was with my little brother, so I think a lot of my focus was on making sure he was okay. And yeah, maybe it is the fact that I had such low expectations that I think it's good when actually it's not, but I think it's good. You know, the humor works well, and for what the film is, it's great. Ben Schwartz's voice performance is good. Jim Carrey, it's a nice return to form. It's fun, okay? Considering I rented this for £14, I definitely got my money's worth. I don't have any plans on rewatching it, but I know I definitely will, because I just had so much fun watching this. And like, yeah, it is pretty like, you know, it's your typical crowd pleaser. And maybe I'm biased, because it's Kelvin Harrison Jr., and also the DP was Jason McCormick. I thought the dialogue was pretty good, and all the actors work well off of each other. And honestly, there were some good shots that I liked. The music in this film is so banging, dude. It's just a nice feel-good film, and yeah, the writing is quite lame and the pacing's just all over the place, but the music's sick, the cast is sick. There was a point in time where this was number 1, but obviously over time I've kind of just forgotten some things about it because, you know, that was a year ago now, so I can't exactly pinpoint on if it actually was that good. But when I did see it, I absolutely loved it. It's got that dry British humor that I love, and it just works really well in this film because I like the way it comments on the social class differences, and I think that's portrayed really well with the character of Emma, as always, brilliantly performed by Anya Taylor-Joy. And also Mia Goth, she's also just superb in everything I see her in as well. Yeah, it was nice. It was funny, it was captivating, and I really liked it. I can understand why someone may not like this film, because, you know, it's just, social media bad. But it just does it so well, you know, like like that message is definitely assisted with the screen capture format, and this is definitely one of the better films that uses that. And I just thought this was an absolute blast. This is most probably the best dark comedy that's come out since Ingrid Goes West, which is also very similar thematically as well. But yeah, no, this film is just so funny, yet also just terrifying, and Joe Keery's performance, he's sensational. He was just absolutely marvelous in this, and I feel like it has the potential to become a cult classic. And yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. This was originally number 1, and it had been number 1 all year until I rewatched it yesterday to verify that it is number 1, as I was aware that there were problems with it, but kind of just ignored them because I just enjoyed it so much on that initial watch. And I think I enjoyed it more on the first watch because I saw the trailer for this, and it spoils like one of the biggest parts of the goddamn film. So when I went to see it, I was expecting not to enjoy it and it to not be good in general, because it is a Blumhouse film at the end of the day. And I think that definitely accelerated my experience with the film as I went into it thinking that I wouldn't be able to enjoy it, as I know the spoiler, because I definitely consider this one of my best theatre experiences ever. The surprise I had that it was still so fucking good, and this is easily the most scared I've ever been in a cinema. Even on my rewatch, some scenes still made me so fucking tense. But I really think that on the rewatch, it's harder to completely ignore some of the oversights with the writing. Some of them I can still excuse given how good the rest of the film is and how scared it's able to make me, as well as the fact that I found a way to make sense of it in continuity. But yeah, I still really like it. The cinematography is so effective. It's really good. And also just the fact that this is the best modern spin on the Invisible Man you could ask for. Just how Whannell just reinvigorated it into this intense emotional drama that really handles its themes so well. And this film really illustrates how the world is not in favor for women. And I know that's not the biggest takeaway from the film, but it's definitely an element to be spoken about. And Elizabeth Moss, holy shit, man, this is arguably the best performance of the year, and she is arguably one of the greatest working actors. Pardon the shit joke, but she is invisible, you know, like, I don't see her, I see her character. She has such a clear understanding of the character, as does Whannell, because I believe she's written really well, and they also do a pretty good job of making the exposition sound natural, which I appreciate. And also I think the structure and like the pacing is really good as well, because I watched the deleted scenes and holy shit, they are so bad. I'm so glad that they made the right decision to cut them. But yeah, if you haven't seen this, please do not watch the trailer, because I know I was still able to just fucking love it still knowing that, but it completely destroys and takes away like the most complex layer that Whannell clearly wrote it with. Ironically enough, I'd say this was better on a rewatch, and I rewatched it like 2 weeks after I first saw it, which really shows how good it is, because I don't like rewatching films so quickly, because, you know, it's still fresh in my mind, and you know, diminishing returns. And honestly, if you don't like this film, I'm just gonna assume you're a massive sodge, because I'm aware that this film has its faults. The biggest being that it feels like a pilot to a TV show, as everyone that's not Harley Quinn isn't really developed, and I feel like they don't really have enough screen time. And so yeah, who cares that at points it's not the most compelling, because this film is just so much fun. Like, the exuberance of this film is unmatched, only coming close to like Scott Pilgrim, which this film also does feel very Scott Pilgrim-esque, and not just because it has Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who was fucking hilarious in this film. Margot Robbie, holy shit, I cannot see anyone else playing this role. She is Harley Quinn. She was absolutely amazing and just fantastic. In my opinion, this is what every comic book film, superhero film should strive to be. Just if every film could be this colorful and this vibrant and this energetic and this much fucking fun and this well choreographed and it just sucks that it performed so poorly. And I feel like potentially one of the biggest reasons for that is that the fact that it was R-rated, and I feel like there wasn't really much reason for it to be R-rated. I think they definitely should have leaned more into the R rating. And also my other biggest criticism is the music isn't even bad, but the way it's used is just not fitting at all, and it's honestly quite obnoxious, especially when I rewatched it in IMAX. It fucking destroyed my ears. This is just so aware of what it is, because I just really like the style and the editing I really like as well. It just really sucks that we may not get the sequel that it clearly sets up now. This film is just so animated. I honestly don't even know where to begin, because this is just such a well-made film, and I just love these slice-of-life naturalism films where you're just propelled into this world, and there's not really any setup, and there's not really, you know, like, there's no typical structure. It's just real life, and this is definitely the best one I've seen in that genre. Eliza Hittman, like, she is able to bring out performances with such authenticity. Sydney Flanagan, the main character, this is her first acting role, right? Like, she's primarily a musician, and it's just insane to me how amazing she is in this film. And Talia Ryder as well, she was also so great, and I was shocked to find out that she was only 16 when they shot this film, because her performance is so composed that I thought that only an actor with more experience would be able to pull it off. And aside from just directing actors, she makes such good, clever choices, because this film doesn't really conform to typical conventions. Like, the dialogue she writes just feels so genuine, and it's so subtle, and I fucking love subtlety, and this film is just so quiet, yet it speaks volumes. Like, there's parts in this where you will cringe, and that's exactly what she wants your reaction to be. She is so good at her craft. There's a 12-minute sequence in this film, which, by the way, I only found out it was that long in an interview, because I thought it was like a quarter of that. And there's a long one take in that scene, and both times I watched it, it just cracked me. The scene is just so heartbreaking, and what brings it all together is Sydney Flanagan's delivery of it. Like, she's just so fucking good, and it just feels, it's just, and I also really like the cinematography, because it feels very organic. They do a nice blend of handheld and Steadicam, and it just really tops the whole film off. And I also thought the editing, like, I thought it was cut together so cleanly, and I love how delicately it brings across its message, and it's just a very important, special film. I hope that this gets all of the meaningless awards that it deserves, and this is a film that could be studied in school. I just think it's really good. Oh, yeah, and like, out of all of the films that came out, like, post-COVID, this is the film that I wish I could have seen in a cinema the most. Yeah, I'm finding it hard to articulate my feelings about this, because I just love it so much. So I guess we should most probably move on to television. I thought this was absolutely terrible, and I just do not understand why the majority of people seem to think this is a masterpiece. First of all, the story is just ridiculously predictable. There wasn't a single surprise, and the pacing is atrocious. It is so clearly like a 90-minute feature film dragged out to be 8 episodes, and it's already so slow and so boring. And then it comes to a screeching halt in episode 6, which is easily the worst episode, because all it does is just insult the audience by explaining to them what's happened so far, when it's so obvious what has happened so far. I wouldn't say it's pretentious, but god, it thinks it's way better than it actually is. The main actor was absolutely horrendous. I'm pretty sure she was a fucking clever bot, you know, one of those text-to-speech AIs. It's not completely her fault though, because all the female characters just have no development and just revolve around the male characters that still don't get that much development, but they at least get some, I guess. And I have loads of interpretations of this, so it's not even like I didn't get it. I get what he was trying to do, and he was doing it very poorly. I have a Letterboxd review on this, so I won't go too into it. But pretty much, oh my fucking god, the first 3 episodes, they were pretty great, and especially the first one. The first one was really good. It was a really good pilot, and then by episode 4, they just completely fucking give up and just don't even bother to try and make a competent piece of television. They forget to develop characters, and they just leave subplots absolutely dead in a ditch. And I wouldn't sound this angry if it wasn't for how it ended. The ending is just fucking stupid, and I hate it so much. And also it's just really abrupt as well. And just overall, the show just doesn't feel like it's doing anything special. Actually, no, the cinematography, it's not special, but it's good. The cinematography was good, and so is the world building as well. But just no. And also, it's just fucking uncomfortable, and the point isn't to make you uncomfortable. You have this 16-year-old actor, and there's just so many shots of her in only her pants. And it's just like, what the fuck? Why? What are you? No, stop. That's definitely the worst part for me of how disgustingly sexual it is, how disingenuous it is with its themes, and just the lack of effort when it comes to writing. I checked this out because it had a lot of potential, but yeah, it's just very lackluster. It feels like it didn't really know what it wanted to be because the tone is all over the place. It doesn't know if it wants to be like this stylistic sort of thriller comedy or like a drama, and it really just isn't good at balancing that. And I do like the sort of style that it has, but once again, it never fully commits to it. I don't know, it just looked like it would be a lot of fun, and it ends up being really boring with a just stupid ending, which I saw coming from a mile away, and I will not be watching any further seasons they put out. Oh man, I bloody loved season 1. You know, it's most probably up there with like being one of my favorite Netflix shows. But season 2, it's just season 1 again. You know, like it has the exact same storyline, and it's just, oh, what did they do? Why did they have to ruin it? Honestly, it was painfully average, and I'm really disappointed. And I don't care for season 3. I just don't. I don't want my perception of the Umbrella Academy to be punched and trampled on even more. This was alright. It's a neon-soaked, globe-trotting joyride, but it's kind of boring, and I never got into it because it felt quite stale. You know, like, it was pretty fun, but the only reason I stuck with it is because literally every frame of this could make for an amazing wallpaper. Like, how do they make London look like a paradise? It's incredible. It's so beautifully stylistic. The first half of this is a nice, like, pretty adorable comedy that's funny because the premise is kind of ridiculous and the great art style pushes that to be over the top, and it's quite funny because of it. But the non-linear narrative really doesn't work, and the whole structure is just weird. At the end of every episode is a flash forward that the show seems to be leading to, but it really doesn't at all. It got to the end of episode 9 and I was like, how the fuck is this going to transition from a wholesome comedy to sad drama in 2 episodes? And it doesn't. Only the final episode is like that, and it's honestly so stupid and unintentionally funny to me. It's generic, rushed, and quite manipulative. I know this also completely changes the manga it's based on, but I think it would have been better if the whole thing was from the daughter's perspective. I think the comedy would have been more effective. Yeah, maybe I didn't like this because I just absolutely love The Haunting of Hill House, and that's easily my favorite limited series of all time, and therefore had hopes that this would replicate that. But I did also go into it with pretty middling expectations. The main reason being that Mike Flanagan wasn't directing all of the episodes, and that's not even the main problem I had with it. The direction between all of the episodes is fine. My favorite episode he didn't even direct, which is the last episode, and like literally that last episode is the only reason it's above Kikuchi Goto, because that last episode was absolutely just amazing, and even though I didn't really have that much investment in the rest of the series, it really just made me, I just really got so emotional watching that. But the rest of the series, especially the first 4 episodes, is just really boring, and it just doesn't feel like they know what they're doing. And personally, I just found it really predictable. And no, I hadn't read the book before or seen. I intentionally chose not to see The Turning, which came out earlier in the year, which I've seen since, because I wanted to go into this blind, which, by the way, that film was absolute shit and definitely made me appreciate this series a lot more. I don't know, man, I just didn't really like it. Maybe it was the mood, but the performances were absolutely fucking incredible. Victoria Pedretti, great to see her again. She was incredible. She was so good. And then her girlfriend was really good as well. And then the housekeeper and the other guy, fuck, I can't remember their names, but they were so charming and they were just so lovable, and they were also really good. But yeah, I just really didn't find it entertaining, and I just thought it was a bit too long and boring, and As I said in my 2019 video, in my eyes, Season 1 is essentially a perfect season of television, so obviously Season 2 wouldn't be able to live up to that, but man, I was hoping that it would be able to live up to at least half of that. I was really disappointed by this. Like, it kind of comes together in, like, the final few episodes, but, no, this is nowhere near as gripping as the first season. You know, it has some great commentary on how, like, big companies pretend to be, woke and to care about people, I guess. You know, it has some great commentary on that, and you know, it does that well, and it does a great job at characterizing Homelander more, but I feel like that's all it does. But you know, we all knew how this season would end going into it, and it's just, I don't know, it just really didn't grab me. I don't know, I really can't remember much of it. In my 2019 video, I said how people are just sleeping on this show because it is so good. And also in that video, I said that the only bad thing about Season 2 is that the way it sets up Season 3, I fear it will be a bit too convoluted. And that is kind of the case. Like, it did do what I was suspecting it would, and it definitely does it well. But I'm not gonna lie, it does kind of lose me. But the thing is, I watched it because I was so excited for it. I just knocked it all out the day it came out, and I think that was a bad idea, especially because in like June and July I just really wasn't in a good mood most of the time, and so I never like fully got into it, and I didn't really like it because of that. But overall, I do love the show, and I do hope that Netflix put out like a Blu-ray box set, because I would like to own that. But yeah, Season 3, which is the final season, I don't know, it just doesn't really sort of flow and like mesh well with the other two, because it does kind of feel, I don't know, I just felt very disconnected from it. Then again, that might not be the show's fault. At the same time, it feels like all 3 seasons were planned out before they even like started shooting, but it also does feel quite rushed. But yeah, you know, the performances are great. Ben Frost's score is fantastic once again. The story is just fucking crazy, dude. Like, it's actually just so cool. But yeah, there's just something that didn't grab me as much as the first 2 seasons, but I think that's more my fault just because of the mood I was in and how I decided to consume the season. And it had a nice ending, and that's all you can ask for with a TV show. Yeah, it's pretty weird that they aired 2 seasons only 3 months apart. I don't know if it was like a sort of Breaking Bad thing where it's actually 1 season, but they split it up or what, but it's listed as 2 different seasons on Netflix, so I don't know. Anyway, I like this one a lot more than the first season. For the most part, it wasn't as fun as the first season, but that's because the tone was much different, because it needs to be given what it handles, which really aided in adding a lot of depth to the show. They really managed to flesh out the characters, even if it means the pacing can be quite bad at times, because that's what the first season was lacking. It wasn't as visually stunning as the first one as well, but it's better in every other regard, I would say. The soundtrack is also very fitting. It's not the most surprising piece of media ever, but I mostly had fun watching it. By like episode 4, you kind of stop to think about it for a minute, and you're just like, I don't know anything about these characters. And also, what about that subplot that came up in episode 2 and hasn't been explored since? I guess it will come up later because there's only 2 episodes left. And then it just doesn't. It does kind of lose its momentum in the final 2 episodes, and also the ending itself is it's stupid. I'm pretty sure like everyone hates it because it's just so cheesy and abrupt. Everything's kind of underdeveloped, and it just throws things at you without any meaning. And also, Nicole Kidman, she gave a pretty inconsistent performance. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was like, I don't want to generalize, but like, this is exactly what I expect from South Korea. Just like this quirky, fun thing that just doesn't take itself too seriously, and you just have an absolute blast with. But yeah, I hope it gets a season 2, because I really did like spending time with these characters, and it's just a lot of fun, okay? Yeah, this was alright. I don't think it really leads on from season 1 too well, because there's a lot of stuff in this, and it kind of it almost forgets, like, the main plot, you know, like, it pushes the main plot to the side until, like, the last few episodes, and I just wish that the whole season was more similar to, like, the last 3 episodes, because you kind of have all of these subplots, which, don't get me wrong, I like, but it was just like, okay, we got all these nice subplots, what about the actual, and now it's resolved, okay, what? And also, I don't like the way it sets up season 3. But yeah, it's not the most well-written piece of media, but I was entertained all throughout, and I, watched it all in one sitting, and I was never bored. And yeah, no, this is a pretty slept-on Netflix show, I'd say. Wait, no, actually, fuck that. They got like all the fucking lights on in the house when it's like noon. Yeah, so I was pretty excited for this because I'm a fan of Anya Taylor-Joy, but I couldn't watch it straight away because I was busy. And then just, it blew up. And so when I finally came to watch it, maybe it is just the fact that it blew up, but Jesus, I really don't understand why it just gained so much traction and was on the Netflix top 10 for months. Because I think just most of the casual audiences are like, whoa, how did they make boring old chess not boring? And like, yeah, you do have to credit them for doing that because like the editing and direction in those chess scenes are really good, and it's good at taking something seemingly dull and making it tense. And also the sound design in those scenes is really good as well, because like they make you feel the weight in every single movement of the chess piece. That is really commendable. But the structure of it really isn't that great. Like past episode 3, I just really didn't care because it just ends up being quite generic. But the final episode was okay, I guess, and it's also very clearly written by a man. I just wish they would have leaned into like the addiction side of the story more, because I feel like they didn't really do that. Yeah, the cinematography is pretty good, I guess, as well. But first 2 episodes were fucking sick. I really loved them. I'm really annoyed that Netflix just cancelled this for like seemingly no reason. I think it was because like it would be too expensive to film it or something. I really like this, it's not the best. I thought some acting was quite choppy, and the story was really, really predictable, but I had fun with it. I binged it all the day it came out, and it was, it was easily digestible, and it's cool. It's fine, and it, it has the same style and trademark as End of the Fucking World, because it's the same creators. Yeah, it was fine. I had a strong feeling the show wouldn't be good, as it's called Pen 15, like, come on, are you serious? And the first season, it was okay, but it really wasn't that good. It is just a bit meh and relies on the cringe of it all, but this season was so much better, and it was just really good, and I feel like they have a much firmer grasp of what this show is now. It felt more like a show, instead of a string of, like, SNL sketches. Anna Konkle, her performance in this season is, like, really good, and there's, like, a storyline that it explores more, and I just think it does it really well. And aside from the serious stuff that I liked about this season, I also think it was a lot funnier as well. And like, I would much really love this a lot more if I was like American, because I just really can't relate to this school experience at all. But it seems pretty genuine. This definitely got better as it went along, because the pilot was very weak, and episode 2 I didn't really like because it does a lot of setup, but for that to happen, some illogical stuff happens, and it just pissed me off. And also in the first half, they have a lot of these graphics, which are cool and all, but I'm kind of just getting sick and tired of them, and also it just doesn't fit the tone of the show, so I'm glad they disappeared after like the midpoint. The music in the show, it's cool, don't get me wrong, I love it, but it can be repetitive at times, and also the placement wasn't the best. There was this one, like, really sad and tense scene where they played the theme song, and it's just so out of place because you got this high energy rock music with like this sad shit on screen, and it just really undermined the great performances of the scene and the emotional impact of the scene altogether, because it made it funny when it shouldn't be. And the 2 lead performances are great. I mean, everyone's believable, but the 2 leads are really good. Like Kim Dong-hee is just like really good at playing like this reserved person, and then Park Ji-hoon, and she's like really good at making you like her, because initially you just despise her, but they just do a really good job of redeeming her and making her lovable, and that's definitely the show's strong point, just making you really like the characters, because although they do dumb things that the writers clearly overlooked, and also very illegal activities, they are good at what's writing true to the character and augmenting them. However, the pacing is a bit meh, because although it's never boring, it does have a super long setup, and even though episode 9 was my favorite, it does drag a bit as well. And also the dialogue wasn't the best. There were like a lot of unnatural lines of dialogue. That might just be the Netflix subtitles as well, I'm not sure. It's not the best written story, but it's increasingly engaging, and I'm really looking forward to its 2nd season. Okay, yeah, technically these are 2 short films, one of which premiered in 2021, but technically it's also a season of television that premiered in 2020, so just let me talk about it, please. Okay, thank you. Okay, I just fucking love this show so much, but the biggest complaint for everyone is that it is a bit unrealistic, and Sam Levinson heard that, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna make 2 episodes that are just so grounded, and so intimate, and just so authentic, and he did, and they were great. The first episode was fucking great. I watched it twice, because it's just so relaxing, yet also quite somber, and I think it has a lot of great social commentary, and it's just really nice. There's 2 stunning performances, and the continuity editing is really good, considering it's just one location the whole time, pretty much anyway. The second episode was just fucking amazing, and I think it's arguably the best episode of the whole series so far, although not personally my favorite. In my 2019 video, I was saying how just crazy it is that this is Hunter Schafer's first acting role, because she's just so good, and now this is her first writing credit as well. Like, she's so fucking talented, and also she helped out with the pre-production of this episode, and also did the storyboards. Like, oh my fucking god, like this episode was just so good, and it just made me want to go back and watch the first season for the 3rd time. And just Hunter Schafer is just she's unstoppable. Her performance in this is just so fucking good, and I think it's structured really well, and it adds a lot to the first season, and it just really layers on to Jules's character. The lighting is just so good, and then the cinematography as well. Marcel Rev is doing a great job on that, and it's just, man, I'm so excited for season 2 to come out. I just love the way that Sam Levinson and Hunter Schafer collaborated onto this to just make a really important piece of art. I think I've mentioned the Weekly Planet podcast twice on this channel, and I've been listening to them for about half a decade now, and they often bring up this YouTube channel called Aunty Donna, because they're friends with them, and for some reason I've just never bothered to check them out, and so when I heard that they had a Netflix show coming out, I was like, oh, this is the best opportunity to check them out, and I watched it, and I was just so cross with myself that I had never checked them out before then, because once I watched this show, I went back and watched all of their YouTube sketches and rewatched them countless times already, in only a span of 3 months, and now I'm just constantly listening to their improv comedy podcast because it's the funniest podcast I've ever listened to. And like, I'm not gonna lie, at first I was a bit like, but once you warm up to it, it's just one of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen. And it's just so hilarious. Like, it's just so absurd and ridiculous, but it just works so well. And this humor is so unique to them. And I just really hope that it gets a season 2 because I just love these guys so much. And this is easily the best sketch show I've seen. So please check it out. It might not be your thing, and that's perfectly fine, because I recommended this to my brother because it seemed like it would be something he would like, and at first he was a bit like, it's a bit hit or miss, and then next time I spoke to him a month later, he had watched it through 6 different times, and we just spent an hour quoting and reenacting our favorite sketches of theirs. These guys are going to be fucking huge one day, and these guys are just fucking hilarious, and I love them so much, and they're honestly, genuinely such good character actors, and the show is just so smart, and it's just excellently written, and it's just just watch it. Yeah, I know. The top 2 TV shows of 2020 aren't even technically narrative driven. I mean, it is basically just a comedy stand-up special, but it is technically narrative driven, so just let me talk about it because I fucking loved this so much. First of all, Ben Schwartz and Thomas Middleditch, you have to really owe it to them. Like, every now and then I think I could do improv comedy, and then I'm just like, no, I would not be able to perform under that much pressure, and they just do it so effortlessly. Like, they're fucking incredible at just thinking on their feet, and they're just hilarious. Like, they are such funny comedians, and they're just fucking great. Like, this was absolutely hilarious, and this came to me at a time when I needed it most, because as I said earlier, like June, July, I wasn't really feeling that great, and like everything I was watching I just didn't like because it wasn't able to like distract me. But this was able to pull me out of my fucking like pit of sadness, and that's the primary reason why it's above Aunty Donna, because it helped me, I guess. Because although it is kind of like equally hilarious, Aunty Donna does have more replay value, and it is more, there's writing involved with that, whereas this is all improvised. But they're so great, and like, in my opinion, it does get progressively worse. Episode 1 is the best, and episode 3 is the worst, because in episode 3 they literally fuck up and like forget what they were doing, and they have to come out of character and be like, wait, what? And so, but that kind of just added to the humor of it all. But yeah, I hope it gets more seasons because it was fucking hilarious, and I loved it so much. Okay, well, now moving on to games. This was one of those free-to-play independent Steam games where you choose your own line of dialogue, and I honestly really liked this. Like, yeah, it only took me like an hour to play, but yeah, no, this was it was cute and I liked it. I can't speak for if the dialogue choices were different, like if it was actually eventful and changed how the game was, because I only played through it once as I won on my very first go. I most probably should have played through it more than once to give you a broader review of it. The first couple of hours I was just absolutely ecstatic. I had not been that happy playing a video game since the first Spider-Man game and everything, and I was just so excited and so happy to be playing it. But then after a while, all of the fears that I had about the game before playing it come to light, and you do realize that this is very clearly an unfinished, rushed game that should have been DLC for the first game. I assume Sony forced Insomniac to make this to be a PS5 launch title to, get more money, which is really a shame, and it wouldn't be as a shame if it was just not so blatantly fucking obvious that that's the case. The biggest one being the amount of glitches I got. I didn't get a single glitch with the first game, and with this one I just got loads where I just had to restart the game, or it was just visual glitches, which weren't that bad. But also the fact that it is the exact same map, which is a bit annoying, but oh well. And the story is just so generic and so cookie cutter, and it's so bad. The story is so bad, and it's just not entertaining, and it's just not well thought out, or it's so bad, and the dialogue is even worse. This is a 16 rated game. I am literally the exact target demographic for this game, and yet I just feel insulted by the dialogue, because Miles will do something and then he'll say what he just did, like and also the new face for Peter Parker. I've tried so hard to warm up to it, but I just can't, because it just doesn't match Yuri Lowenthal's voice performance at all. Oh, and by the way, maybe it is just a bad dialogue, but I just really don't like this Miles, but the voice performance I just really don't like, and I think it is quite bad. And also there's a bunch of annoying anti-user friendly things they added, there were these one group of side missions that were just not fun in the slightest, and I hated, and also some altercations to the UI which I don't understand, because it was perfectly fine in the first game. But yeah, it is a lot of fun to play, and whenever I feel like web swinging around New York City, I boot this up now, because the web slinging is just so much more improved, and it just looks so much slicker, and it just I just really appreciate that it's not just a reskin of the first game, that Miles actually has different animations, his combat looks different and his swinging looks different, and I really appreciate that. I had a feeling that this would kind of be similar to Miles Morales in the way that this would end up being a shitty, rushed game that shouldn't be full price and purely only exists to build hype. But yeah, no, this game is actually deserving of its full price tag, because there's actually so much fucking content in this game. It's actually insane. I'm someone that does all the side missions before main story stuff, and I've had to rush and skip over some of the side missions to get it done for this video, because I don't want this video to be even later than it already is. And I've had the game for fucking 2 months. Then yes, although a lot of the levels are just the same maps of other levels, just with different stuff on there, it feels different. Talking about the gameplay, a lot of the characters aren't really that fun to play as, their movesets just aren't cool, and it's they're aware of that, because they added in this thing where you can just buy XP. No, not a microtransaction type deal, which is cool, because you are forced to play as them at some points, but it just feels like cheating, although the gameplay is incredibly repetitive, it's very satisfying, and it's nice to just chill and kill a whole bunch of bokoblins, The frame rate, however, the Switch really cannot handle this game well. And talking about the Switch's capabilities, the HUD, it does its job, it's cool, but the screen can feel very messy at times. There's just a lot going on, and I feel like you could make the text smaller so it doesn't feel that messy, but no, you can't do that, because people will be playing this on a Switch, or will be playing it on a tiny screen, so the text needs to be big. Yeah, it's just fun to play, because it doesn't really use any brain power, and the story's fine. I never really got fully invested into it, but I think that's because, one, I was playing it very scattered, I'd play it and then not play it for 2 weeks and then come back. But then also the fact that it's a prequel, so you know exactly how it's going to end. But what if I told you, no, it's not? This was marketed as being the prequel to Breath of the Wild, and the whole thing was find out what happens 100 years before Breath of the Wild that leads into the events of Breath of the Wild. Yeah, nah, fuck that. This is a fucking alternate timeline, and it's not canonical, or at least technically, because the Zelda timeline is already so fucking convoluted, and it's essentially just made up of fan theory. series at this point. But yeah, that was just really disappointing. Like, I was expecting a few retcons, but not just an entirely alternate version of events that doesn't lead into Breath of the Wild at all. Everyone who got this game didn't actually want it. They just want the sequel to Breath of the Wild and therefore crave anything related to it, because we just haven't had any fucking news on the sequel in ages. And they knew that, and they kind of took advantage of that and kind of lied to us, or at least I think they did. I don't know, maybe I just didn't pay close attention. But yeah, that was like really annoying, and now I'm not really as motivated to go back and do all the side missions. You know, I would have actually liked a full-on prequel to my favorite game of all time, Breath of the Wild. Speaking of favorite games, the next game I'm going to talk about is actually my new favorite game, because it's the best game I've ever fucking played. Okay, this was originally like 15 minutes long, and even that doesn't do the game justice, but you know, I can't speak for that long in this type of video, so I'll do my best to condense it. And I need to stress, this isn't even coming from a fanboy of the first one. I only played that game over New Year's of 2019 into 2020 because I knew the sequel was coming out soon. And I really liked it, and I especially loved the game's open book ending, and therefore I never got hyped for the sequel as I felt it would be unnecessary, and also I just didn't have much attachment to the franchise. So I finally got around to playing it in January, and this is art of the highest caliber. Firstly, the gameplay, it's essentially just more of the same. You know, it just builds upon the foundation of the first game to make it feel more refined and slick, and you know, it's just and the combat is a lot of fun, and also the UI is practically perfect. And this is like really my only criticism of the game, is that most of the gameplay really is just press triangle, okay now mash square, okay now hold triangle. I feel like they could change it up a bit. Naughty Dog were able to create the most immersive experience I've ever had. It's really the little things that matter, like how Ellie will brush her hair back behind her ear every now and then, and like the meaningless conversations which add so much to the character. And I'm so glad I'm one of those people who does everything in an area before leaving, because finding all of these trading cards that they had to create entire backstories for, and all these unique handwritten notes and all the safes, it's just so rewarding. There's just a ridiculous amount of attention to detail, and also the AI is really clever as well. Just like I am with animated films, I don't get why games are so geared towards having these hyper-realistic graphics. You know, I much prefer games like Borderlands. But with this game, not only does it do it so well, but you need this. You know, when the emotion it's showing in its characters is so raw, and the story so emotionally intense and intelligent, you need these little things like snow slowly disappearing to completely push you into the realm of this game. This is a game that proves the idea that video games are the best medium for storytelling. You could not pull off this story in a film or even a TV show. What adds so much layered complexity to the story is that you are these characters. You're not just watching them. I would fucking love to get into spoilers and discuss the adult themes of the story that it handles just so effectively, because that's the real meat of the game, but I won't, obviously. For a story that lasts about 20 hours, it's amazing that they're able to make it never not compelling. I think the non-linear narrative isn't really the best, because they just always reduce the stakes no matter what, but I really don't think there's a better way to unfold the story other than the way they did. This will make you feel so many emotions. When it ended, I was like this weird mix of happy and sad, and then after about an hour, I just went into nothingness. The emotional response sparked from this game is just unparalleled. The week after I played this was like the quickest week of my life, because I really just didn't do anything other than watch interviews for it. I didn't even watch a film for 10 days, and I didn't even listen to music for 6. I just couldn't get out of that headspace. I'm still just constantly thinking about it nearly like a month later at this point. This is a game that made me happy to be alive, but also sad to be alive, because I'm not sure anything will ever be able to peak this. And this game just made me completely forget everything else going on in my life, and just all of my worries were just gone. And I firmly believe that everyone should play these two games. Even if you're not a gamer, you're a human, aren't you? These two games showcase some of the most human emotion I've ever seen, thanks to the immaculate story arcs and just astonishing performances. I just fucking love Ellie as a character, and she's just masterfully written, and no one but Ashley Johnson could play her as well as she does. And now, I really don't want a sequel. Neil Druckmann said that there were no plans to do a part 3, and God, I just really hope that stays the case, because I just think it would be way too risky to return to this beautiful yet haunting world, because it's already perfection. And I just want to give just a massive massive props to everyone who worked on this game. I know the video game industry is apparently hell, but it seems like it was worth it. All the concept artists, the incredible sound design team, the wonderfully complimentary score, the lighting, the DPs, everyone just well fucking done. Thank you, I love you. It's amazing that a game I thought would be pointless ended up bringing so much meaning to my life. And yeah, I know that sounds corny, but shut up. This is a fucking masterpiece, and it's truly a work of art which everything moving forward will look up to in shame. Because yes, this may be a game, but it is also an experiment on the human psyche. Whew, hopefully that was a bit shorter, most probably not. Anyway, let's just get this fucking video over with now. Oh. Okay, this was way too long, oh my god. Who would have known that my favorite piece of media to come out of 2020 was going to be a video game? 2020 was a pretty bad year for film. Even if COVID didn't happen, I still don't think it would have been that great of a year. Especially coming off the back of 2019, which is just one of the greatest years for film ever. You know, with Parasite and The Lighthouse and Waves and Midsummer and Booksmart. But you know, it was alright, and just remember that this is not only my opinion, but my opinion is subject to change. And also, I'm a very indecisive person anyway, so quite a few of these rankings are interchangeable. If you've watched the entirety of this video, holy shit, thank you so much. This has taken so long to edit. Hopefully 2021 will be a better year for film. I doubt it, but hopefully Last Night in Soho will actually come out this year, because that was my most anticipated film for 2020, and it's once again my most anticipated film for 2021. So, but yeah, thank you for watching, and goodbye.
I know I should talk a little more about my feelings, but I'm so unsure. Cause there's two options: I could keep it inside, or I can let everything out and then you maybe realize. But I could scream into my pillow and then bottle it up.
And I do want to make it clear with the Tenant bit, the reason I didn't like the movie, I found later on, was just because I didn't understand it. Someone explained the narrative to me, and now that I understand it, it's the best movie I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I am a dumb cunt.
Yeah.
So when I saw the movie and I didn't understand it because I'm dumb and I don't understand shit because I'm stupid and I've never seen movies before.
Mark, chill.
I'm just saying,
Chill.
now that I understand what
Chill.
happened, it's the best movie and there's no flaws.